The people intend to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the death of one Albert D. Mando on the 12th of October last, from a bullet wound in the back of the head, was brought about by a conspiracy to murder, which existed directly prior to the murder between co-defendants Clegg and Tomek. The people also intend to prove that Earl Clegg paid Ralph Tomek the sum of $20,000, and that the money was paid to Tomek for the sole purpose of committing the murder, and that the murder of Al Mando was committed at Clegg's request, although at the time of the murder, the defendant Clegg was confined to the penitentiary at Redfern. As to the motive, the people will establish that Earl Clegg ordered Mando's death to rid himself of a damaging witness who would have testified against him in a pending trial for...
How can he make a case?
He can't. He doesn't know anything I don't know, does he?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
No, there's no doubt about it. It was a 9mm caliber bullet. Now, the gun was probably foreign made. German made, I'd say.
Are you absolutely sure of the gauge of the bullet, Mr. Harkness?
Well, I would think so, after 25 years of being head of the police ballistic department.
Good. On the basis of your experience, would you say a 9mm weapon is in common usage?
Oh, no. Very uncommon. But it does a job. Yes, sir, it sure does a job.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any cross, Mr. Luther?
No cross-examination, Your Honor.
Please be seated.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Dakes?
I'm an investigator for the state's attorney, John Bernard.
In connection with this work, did you recently make a trip to Detroit?
I did.
For what purpose?
To obtain a photostatic copy of defendant Tomek's application for a gun permit.
Mm-hmm. Did you obtain it?
I did.
Did the permit specify the type of gun?
Yes, the defendant applied to possess a 9mm Luger, German made.
Your Honor, I offer into evidence as People's Exhibit A, defendant Tomek's gun permit issued by the Detroit Police Department.
All right, clerk. It will be received as People's Exhibit A.
You're a taxi driver in the city, Mr. Floyd?
For 15 years.
Do you keep a record of all your fares?
You bet. Hack Bureau is very rough about that stuff. I can lose my license, you know.
Then on the 10th of October last, did you keep a record of your fares?
You bet I did. Like I said, I can lose my license, you know.
Yes, I know. Now,
Well, I could.
All right, Mr. Floyd. Now, what was your first ride of the day?
First ride of the day. It's from the airport to the State Trade Association building on 1st Street.
At what time?
See, I got that too. Let's see. 9:20 on ahead.
Do you recall what your passenger looked like?
Yep. That's him. That guy there, Tomek. That's his name. Hey, he looked the same as his picture in the paper.
No further questions.
Cross-examination, Mr. Luther?
No cross, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Floyd, you can step down. Call Victor Fell, please.
Relax.
Victor Fell
It's a little thing. It's those little things that worry me.
For whom do you work, Mr. Fell?
For the State Trade Association.
Mm-hmm. And what is the State Trade Association?
It's a dues-paying association of retail merchants.
Isn't it a fact that the merchants belong to the association because they have to?
What do you mean?
Isn't it set up to extort so-called protection payments from frightened businessmen?
Objection.
Sustained.
Would you tell me whether Earl Clegg is on the association's board of directors?
I told you. I just keep books. I'm an accountant, not executive.
Mr. Fell, the State Trade Association paid Ralph Tomek the sum of $10,000 on the 10th of October last. Is that correct?
Well, it must be. You have the books.
A second payment of $10,000 was paid to Mr. Tomek on the 12th day of October last. Al Mando was murdered that day. Now tell me, was the money paid to him for the murder?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Tomek is an organizer for our association in the Detroit area. He was paid $10,000 on the 10th, but it was accumulated.
Would you speak up, please, for the jury?
He was paid $10,000 on the 10th. That was accumulated salary. On the 12th, he borrowed $10,000 as an advance against future earnings.
Mr. Fell, did you know the murdered man, Al Mando?
Yes. Yes, I did. We worked together.
Is that all?
No. No, we were good friends. Very good friends.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Luther?
No cross, Your Honor.
You may step down, Mr. Fell. I think we've gone far enough for today. I must caution the jurors and the alternates not to discuss this case with anyone under any circumstances. Court will reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Well, gentlemen, we'll see what tomorrow brings.
Think we ought to have a meeting or something?
I don't see why. Mr. Fell turned out to be a better witness for us than for Mr. Cain. Mr. Tomek, do you have to do that all the time?
What's that, Mr. Luther?
With this preoccupation you have with your extremities, always cleaning your fingernails, it distracts me.
Well, my mother used to have a sign over the kitchen sink. It said, cleanliness is next to godliness. Okay?
But your hands are dirty, Mr. Tomek. Look at them. Clean nails, dirty hands. Is that how you get next to God? I wish I understood you better.
Cain, I'm an innocent man. Cain, you're crucifying me.
It's my pleasure, Clegg.
It's no use. He said, they'll find me wherever I go.
They'll find me wherever I go. Who is they, Miss Lazo?
Al told me that Clegg had put out a contract on him.
What do you mean by contract?
That Clegg had arranged to have him murdered. That's what I mean. You see, it was my fiancé's testimony in that first tax trial that sent Clegg to prison. On the day that Clegg was sentenced, I was in the courtroom with Al, and Clegg came over to us, and I heard him threaten Al.
That's a lie.
Do you recall his exact words?
Oh, I'll never forget his exact words. He said, I'm going to have you killed, Mando. And from that day on, Al never left the apartment. He was afraid to go out. He wouldn't answer the telephone. He'd just sit there all day with the shades drawn, just waiting for someone to come and kill him. As far as I know, I was the only person that he saw. I'd come over to the apartment and fix dinner for both of us. That's the way it went on for months.
When was the last time you saw the deceased?
On the morning that he was killed. He called me just as I was getting ready to go to work and asked me if I'd stop by. So I did. And when I got there, he told me that Clegg had arranged for a man named Tomek to kill him.
Did Mando ever mention the name Tomek to you before?
A few days before, he said that he'd seen a man watching the house by the name of Tomek. And when I asked him who he was, he said that he was the executioner for the organization.
Do something.
May it please the court. I move to strike the testimony of this witness in its entirety. It relates to a conversation that she allegedly had with a dead man. And insofar as there's no way to corroborate what he did or did not say to her, I submit that this is hearsay.
Your Honor, I'm not asking the witness to supply the facts in this case, but to establish the victim's state of mind prior to his murder.
Well, if the court please, I'm interested in the victim's state of mind too, but I can hardly cross-examine him.
I understand the counsel's dilemma, Your Honor, but this line of questioning is vital to establish the people's case.
There'd better be some connection here, Mr. Cain. In the meantime, Mr. Luther, I will temporarily reserve your motion to strike subject to subsequent testimony, which Mr. Cain will have to provide in order to substantiate what's on the record. Otherwise, it will not be admissible.
Miss Lazo.
Right now, I'd like some lunch, and I'm sure the rest of you would, too. You may step down for the moment, Miss Lazo. Court will reconvene at 2 p.m.
She's lying, I tell you. She's just trying to frame me. I never threatened him. She's just trying to set me up. Now, you better do something, you hear? Why, you little...
Yeah.